This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined here today by Richard Schaefer. We're at the Wilder Fury undercard press conference here in LA. How are you, Richard?
Very well, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, very well. I think you're probably the first person who's asked me how I'm doing since I've been in LA.
That's okay, you know.
Very friendly of you, I like it. So you're here today with your man Joyce, who returns to action on the Wilder Fury undercard. Just tell me a little bit about your involvement with Joyce. Good to see him back on a big show.
Well, I was impressed since the Olympics with with Joyce, and my good friend David Hay came to me with the opportunity to sign him together to a promotional agreement, which we did. I think Joyce today is one of the top 3 or 4 young heavyweights. I think from those younger heavyweights, he's the one which is the most advanced because he has a tremendous amateur background. Today's amateurs are not like yesterday's amateur. Today's amateur fought without headgear, so I think the transition from amateur to pro is much easier, and we see that with Joe. 6 fights, 6 wins, 6 knockouts. He is quickly. He was the first. In his 4th fight, he was the Commonwealth champion, British Commonwealth champion, which set the record. Now he's fighting for the WBA Continental title. So I think within the next 12 months he'll be fighting for one of the heavyweight titles, and I like my chances. He is an amazing fighter.
Now you mentioned that Joyce is one of the best young heavyweights. He's not that young. I think he's 33. With that being said, is there any pressure on you from a promotional point of view to kind of push him into big fights quicker than you would say if he was 23?
Well, you know, with the heavyweights, 33 is not that old. So that's like you're so like in your prime. And you know, we move the fighters not based on their age. We move the fighters based on their abilities and where they stand in the particular progress, with the goal being to fight for a world title. Now in Joe's case, as I said, because of his deep amateur background, yes, he's 33, but he's a very seasoned 33 pro, so you can't really look at the 6 fights. One might say, wow, with 6 fights, you know, it's going to take the guy forever. It's going to be 40 before he's fighting for a world title. Well, that doesn't apply to today's amateurs, so he's ready to take anyone. As a matter of fact, just today he's talking to me again about wanting to fight Baby Miller, and he doesn't just say these things. I mean, he really wants those fights, and I believe he's ready to go. But I told him, let's focus first on Saturday with Hanks. He's fighting a seasoned veteran with 23 wins, 2 losses, 15 knockouts, a big puncher as well, and you know, he has no plans, Hanks, to get beat by a guy with 6 fights. So you know, sometimes you need to slow the fighter down a bit, but he's definitely ready to go for a world title.
Now, Joyce has recently relocated. Well, it's not that recent. It's fairly recent. Relocated to California to work out Big Bear with Abel Sanchez. Has that had an effect on him? Do you think that's going to bring the best out of him going forward?
Well, you know, sometimes to break out of your comfort zone and move away from friends and family, from the surroundings you've known all of your life, might be an issue with certain athletes or particularly boxers, but I think it shows you that Joe did make that step and moved from London, one of the most exciting cosmopolitan centers in the world, to that little town up in the mountains of California called Big Bear, where there's really not much, if anything, going on. I mean, talking about difference, talking about commitment though, I mean, it shows you the commitment Joe has to boxing and to sport, and it takes exactly that kind of commitment to become heavyweight champion of the world. So by him making that move, by him choosing one of the best trainers in the sport, who trains among others Triple G as well, Joe, the juggernaut Joyce, I call him Triple J, made the right move to Triple G's trainer, and up there in the mountains of Big Bear, and I think it's a great move.
Now, we've just mentioned the fact that he trains out of Big Bear. He's also been doing some sparring with Tyson Fury when Tyson Fury was in Big Bear for the first part of his camp. Leads us into Saturday's main event, Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. What do you make of that fight?
Well, I have to say, to be perfectly honest, when the fight was announced, I thought it was going to be an easy fight for Deontay Wilder. I've known Deontay Wilder. I signed him after the Olympics to a promotional contract, was involved with his first 30 or so fights, was at every one of his fights, and I know that he's a big puncher, he's a very intimidating fighter, Wilder is, and he's a big talker as well. So usually he wins the battles outside of the ring already by getting into the opponent's head by his smack talk, right? And he's never really found a match. But this week he found a match, and the match is Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, I think, won the verbal battle, the psychological warfare, so to speak, outside of the ring, and that has never happened to Deontay Wilder. And it's going to be interesting to see how is Deontay going to deal with that inside the ring with somebody who clearly got under his skins. In addition to that, you mentioned before, Joyce sparred actually with Tyson Fury, and Joe sort of like initially picked Wilder as well, but after sparring with Fury, he changed his pick, and he's picking Fury now. So I think it's a fascinating matchup. From a skill point of view, I don't think that, or I know that Deontay Wilder has never fought somebody with a skill level like Tyson Fury. So I think it can go either way.
If somebody who's been involved in some of the biggest fights in boxing history, with the likes of Floyd Mayweather, etc., how big of a fight is this?
It's the biggest heavyweight fight here in the United States in many, many years. As a matter of fact, I remember one Klitschko and Lennox Lewis, incidentally as well at Staples Center here, which was a hell of a fight. So it has been a while, you know, and I think the heavyweight sort of like got a bit lost, not only here in the US, but I think worldwide, with the exception of maybe the UK, because Anthony Joshua. But now I think the heavyweights are taking center stage again, and let's face it, to be fighting in the entertainment capital of the world, Los Angeles, the heavyweights, this is a fight which has crossover appeal to non-boxing, even non-sports fans. So I think it's the right moment to stage such a big fight here in Los Angeles, in the entertainment capital of the world. And I think it will help the sport of boxing, and it will certainly elevate the heavyweight division, and of course particularly elevate the winner of this fascinating matchup on December the 1st.
Now obviously, should the winner come through, take rematch clauses out of it. I'm not privy to those kind of details, so just to speculate that the winner would move on. Is a fight with Anthony Joshua the logical next step for a winner of that? Oh,
absolutely. I think that's the fight which fight fans will demand, and I think promoters and managers will have to deliver. I mean, this is the heavyweight division. This is the glamour division of our sport, and not to deliver that kind of fight would be, I think, an injustice to the sport, an injustice to the fight fans, but particularly an injustice to the two fighters, because I know that, as it is the case with most fighters, fighters don't really kill fights. Fighters want to test each other against the best. Otherwise, they wouldn't be fighters. That's the mentality they have. They really want to fight the best. And I know that's the case with Anthony Joshua, and I know it's the case with Deontay or with Tyson Fury. So I hope that fight happens, and I have a feeling it will.
Now, you mentioned that it's not fighters that kill fights. Why do you think that fight hasn't happened? I mean, I'm speaking specifically about Wilder versus Joshua.
Well, I think there were particular reasons why that fight hasn't happened. I think there were reasons which were frankly outside of the control of the fighters. I think that was the promoter with Eddie Hearn having a bit of a different agenda. Obviously, Eddie Hearn back then was going through negotiations of setting up a US TV platform, The Zone, where Anthony Joshua became very important, and so to have The Zone being the broadcast partner of Anthony Joshua made a lot of sense for The Zone. It made a lot of sense for Eddie Hearn. Whether it makes a lot of sense for Anthony Joshua is a different story. But the fact is, I think these sort of like political maneuverings were really the reasons why this fight didn't happen. And you can look back in older archives 6, 8, 9 months ago where I said exactly that, where I said that fight is not going to happen. Now, I think the fight is so big that a similar setup like we've seen with the Mayweather Pacquiao fight can happen, where Mayweather was with Showtime, Pacquiao was with exactly. So you can see this kind of setup now, because the fight is so big, where you have now Anthony Joshua with a zone and you have Deontay Wilder with a Showtime somehow work out a deal that that fight can happen. And again, for the sake of the sport, and particularly for the sake of the fighters, who in many cases these were young kids when they started training and have the dream to become heavyweight champion in that particular case, or undisputed heavyweight champion. Don't let politics or promoters or networks stand in the way of these fighters being able to fulfill their dreams.
How is your relationship with Eddie Hearn? He's somebody that I think it's fair to say you've had your moments with over the last 18 months. How are you currently?
I'm fine with Eddie Hearn, you know. I think anybody who is passionate about the sport of boxing, promotes the sports of boxing. He's a hard-working guy. He travels the world from one place or the other, you know. So I don't have a problem with Eddie Hearn. There are certain things I would do different, you know. But it's his business. He runs his business, and so be it.
Just finally, we've mentioned his name in this interview, Floyd Mayweather. You're somebody who's worked very closely with Floyd. What do you make of his kind of... I mean, I think the kickboxing / Japanese fight, I think that's still on. Maybe you can enlighten me as to what's going on with Floyd?
I don't really know. I mean, first it was on, was announced at the press conference, then it was off, and then I read it was on again. So I don't really, but I haven't really seen any like official press releases or so. So it's a bit, I think, a moving situation. And you know, I mean, Floyd is a celebrity. Floyd, you know, when you follow Floyd on his Instagram, you see he travels the world. He makes appearances from India to Arabia to Africa to Asia and pretty much everywhere in between. He's a celebrity. He gets paid money to attend events, to host events, to entertain people. You know, if this happens, then I'm sure it's going to be another one of those special events Floyd does all over the world. So I wouldn't really read too much into it. I get often asked, is he going to fight again? Well, the only guy who can really answer that is Floyd Mayweather. Floyd is his own boss. If Floyd wants to fight again, he will fight again. And if he doesn't want to fight again, he'll be happy traveling the world and spending money the way he does.
I appreciate that. You've actually stepped on my last question, so I'm going to rephrase it. In your opinion, will we see Floyd Mayweather back in a boxing ring in 2019, namely against Manny Pacquiao? In your opinion?
Look, this is all speculation. I have to say, I don't like to speculate when it comes to Floyd, because, as I said, Floyd is unpredictable. I tell you what I would like to see. As a fight fan, I would love to see a Mayweather Pacquiao rematch. I do believe that Manny Pacquiao looked spectacular in his last fight against Lucas Matisse, a fighter who I've been very familiar with as well. A dangerous fighter, big puncher. I think how he neutralized, how he used his foot movement again. Pacquiao, it looked like a young Pacquiao, and so I was very excited about that performance. It's going to be interesting to see now how Pacquiao is going to do against Adrian Broner. I think a terrific matchup as well, and depending on how that fight works out, I would really like to see Mayweather and Pacquiao again, because it's clear that that Pacquiao had issues with his shoulder. He was not at his best. So I would like to see a rematch and see what would happen if Pacquiao is able to fully move and use all of his all of his assets. How is he gonna look? How is he gonna do? And how is he gonna do against the Floyd Mayweather, who frankly hasn't been in a boxing ring for several years now? And Pacquiao has been more active, so a more active Pacquiao against a relatively inactive Mayweather, I think it would be a fascinating matchup.
Do you think there's a demand for that fight? I mean, the first fight, by all intents and purposes, wasn't quite the fight that many boxing fans hoped it was going to be. Do you think at this point of their careers, there's any chance of it being a better fight? I mean, personally, from a boxing fan point of view, I'd much rather see Floyd Mayweather if he's going to come back to fight an Errol Spence or somebody of that ilk. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I hear that. I hear that as well. Well, we don't really need to see that again. We really don't need to. I'm not going to buy it and so on. But you know what? I'm telling you right now and right here, people are going to buy it because I really feel it would be a better fight than the first fight. I'm convinced about that. I would love to see it. I mean, that's just me, but I know it's just me. I know that night when it's going to come the time to push the button and buy, there are going to be millions and millions of people pushing the button buy if in fact that fight happens.
Okay, well, Richard Schaefer, I've kept you long enough. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
All the best. Until soon. Bye-bye.